Hello, this is Laps of the Past, an F1 history podcast. In this episode, we are heading to Jerez. I'm your host, Jacques. Jump in! Welcome back to Laps of the Past, an F1 history podcast. The show where we will take a look at the most interesting stories, the people, and the races that have happened during the Formula 1's long history. Today, we are traveling back to the year 1997. We are looking at the race weekend that served as a thrilling finale to one of the tensest title fights in history. And incidentally, this is the very race that hooked me into this sport in the first place. The 1997 season was an absolute roller coaster from the start to finish. It was a year of major shifts and historic milestones in the paddock. We saw the rookie Stewart team score their very worst points in Formula 1 in spectacular fashion. That was when Rubens Barrichello started from the 10th on the grid and completely mastered the torrential rain, taking a magnificent second place at the Monaco Grand Prix. Over at McLaren, things were finally turning around too. They claimed their first pole position since 1993 at the Nürburgring. It was a historic moment because it was Mika Häkkinen's very first career pole and also the first pole position for Mercedes as an engine manufacturer since they returned to the sport. But while the midfield was making headlines, the ultimate spotlight was focused entirely on two men. It focused on one of the tensest rivalries the sport had seen in years, Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve. Heading in the final round, the championship was a knife-edge battle between Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari and Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams. Their seasons couldn't have been more different, yet they arrived at the finale separated by just a single point. Villeneuve, driving in only his second season in Formula 1, had the fastest car beneath him. The Williams Renault FW19 was the class of the field. Villeneuve used that raw speed to rack up 7 victories over the course of the year, including the Luxembourg Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, which, as it turns out, would be the very last Grand Prix win of his entire Formula 1 career. But his season was also plagued by inconsistencies, reliability issues and critical mistakes that included a costly disqualification at penultimate round in Japan for ignoring yellow flags in practice. Schumacher, on the other hand, was driving the wheels of a Ferrari that was a historically not quite matched for the Williams. Through sheer brilliance racecraft, wet weather masterclass like Monaco and Spa, and relentless consistency, he kept himself at the very top, taking 5 wins. It was a classic battle of raw package speed versus ultimate driver determination. Incredibly, despite trading blows and dominating the stop-step all season long, Schumacher and Villeneuve had not shared a podium a single time throughout this entire season. Just think about that. It was a statistical anomaly that perfectly captured their bitter, distant warfare. So, after 16 grueling races, the stage was set in Spain. Schumacher led with 78 points, Villeneuve had 77, it was a winner-takes-all, and the drama started long before the lights went out on Sunday. When Saturday's qualifying session kicked off in the warm Spanish sunshine, everyone expected a tense battle for pole position. But no one, literally no one, could have predicted what was about to unfold on the timing screens. It was a sequence of events that left the commentators, the teams and the fans in absolute disbelief. Villeneuve was the worst of the title contenders to set a flying lap. He pushed his Williams out to the absolute limit, crossed the line and stopped the clock at the blistering 1 minute 21.072 seconds. It was a brilliant lap and it looked like a tough target to beat. 14 minutes later, Michael Schumacher outdrove his Ferrari. He was aggressively clipping the curbs and he roared down the pit straight. As he crossed the line, the timing screen flashed. His time, 1 minute 21.072 seconds. Exactly the same, down to the very thousandth of a second. The paddock was already buzzing with disbelief. The odds of the two championship rivals setting the exact same time were astronomical. But the madness wasn't over. A few minutes later, Villeneuve's Williams teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen flew across the line. The screens flashed once more, 1 minute 21.02 seconds. 3 drivers, 2 rival teams, 1 exact time, measured to the 3 decimal places. In a sport where championships are decided by fractions of a second, top 3 positions on the grid were perfectly tied. According to regulations, since Villeneuve set the time first, he was awarded pole position. Schumacher would line up second and Frentzen third. The psychosocial warfare was now reaching a boiling point. The top 2 men in the championship were lining up side by side on the front row, with nothing separating them on the stopwatch. Sunday, October 26, 1997, the atmosphere in Jerez was electric. Millions of fans around the world were glued to their screens, waiting for the lights to go out. The equation was simple. Whoever finished ahead would likely walk away as the world champion. When the red lights faded, it was Michael Schumacher who got the textbook start. His Ferrari launched beautifully from the dirty side of the grid, rocketing past Villeneuve before they even reached the very first corner. Behind Schumacher, Heinz-Ralph Frentzen also slipped past his teammate, but Williams quickly played the team game. They ordered Frentzen to let Villeneuve back into the second place to pursue the leader. For the first half of the race, Schumacher looked to be in complete control. He maintained a steady, agonizing gap of a few seconds over Villeneuve. Pit stops came and went, but the positions remained unchanged. The tension was suffocating. Villeneuve knew if he stayed behind, the title would go to Maranello. He had to make a move. He had to risk everything. By lap 47, Villeneuve had managed to close the gap. He caught a brilliant toe down to the back straight, edging closer and closer to the back of the Ferrari. As they approached the sharp right-hand dry-sack hairpin, Villeneuve saw his opening. He lunged from a mile back, throwing his Williams down the inside, catching Schumacher completely by surprise. Villeneuve was ahead, he had captured the inside line, but as the Williams occupied the apex, Schumacher turned in anyway. It wasn't a normal racing line. Schumacher sharply whisked his steering wheel to the right, deliberately ramming the side of Villeneuve's Williams. It was a carbon copy of Adelaide 1994, where Schumacher had secured his first title after a controversial clash with Damon Hill, but this time the racing gods had a different script. Schumacher's Ferrari bounced off the Williams side but lost traction and slid straight to the gravel trap. The wheel spun helplessly in the sand. Michael Schumacher was out of the race. Back on the tarmac, Villeneuve's car was damaged, but it was still moving. The championship was suddenly completely in his hands. If only the car could hold together until the second flag. With Schumacher stuck in the gravel, Jacques Villeneuve was leading the Grand Prix. But his Williams had taken a heavy hit, and he could feel that the car wasn't handling right. He didn't need to win the race to become a world champion, he just needed to finish in the points. He was vulnerable, and behind him, the two McLaren Mercedes cars of Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard were catching him fast. And this is where one of the most controversial behind-the-scenes political plays in F1 history unfolded. Years later, it was revealed that Williams and McLaren had made a secret, unspoken agreement before the race. The deal was simple. McLaren would not interfere with championship battle. In return, if the opportunity arose, Williams would help McLaren secure a race win. With Schumacher out, the plan went into action. Over the team radio, Villeneuve was told explicitly not to fight the McLarens. On the very final lap of the race, Villeneuve practically pulled over, letting Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard cruise past. It was a perfectly orchestrated finish. Mika Häkkinen crossed the line to take his very first career Grand Prix victory. A poetic bookend finish to a long, grueling journey of 96 races and a moment many feared would never happen after his horrific crash in Adelaide just 2 years earlier. Jacques Villeneuve rolled across the line in third place. It was enough. The son of the legendary Gilles Villeneuve was the 1997 Formula One world champion. But while the celebrations were starting in the Williams garage, the psychosocial war was just reaching its boiling point in the paddock. The fallout from Schumacher's move on the lap 47 was immediate and bitter. When the reporters caught up with Michael Schumacher, he incidentally fiercely defended his actions, saying, "I would have done the same thing again. I went into the corner, I was ahead, and he hit me. I had the inside line, and he tried to squeeze me past where there was no room." Villeneuve, however, saw it very differently. When he heard about Schumacher's comments, he didn't hold back, famously stating, "Michael was completely surprised. He didn't expect me to dive from that far back. But when he realized I was ahead, he just turned into me. It was a reflex action of a desperate man who knew he had lost." For decades, Ferrari and Schumacher's camp maintained that it wasn't merely an instinct, a split-second error under immense pressure. But decades later, Ferrari's team boss at the time, Jean Todt, finally broke his silence and rewrote history with a shocking admission. Speaking on the High Performance podcast, Todt confessed, and I quote, "He crashed into him purposely, but he did it badly. When he saw that he was going to lose the championship because he had to be in front of Villeneuve, he tried to avoid that and he tried wrongly to do it. It was a bad move. It wasn't necessary." The world's media condemned the German and the FIA had to act. In an unprecedented move, Michael Schumacher was completely disqualified from the 1997 World Championship. His 78 points and his second place in the standings were wiped from the history books entirely. Finally, I want to add my own memories of this unforgettable race. I was only 8 years old at the time, and to be honest, I didn't really follow Formula 1 back then. My father, however, had been watching the races for years. In those days in Finland, the races were broadcast on a free-to-air TV channel, but the coverage included commercial breaks. Because of this, some of the key events weren't seen live. And that's exactly how we missed the infamous Schumacher-Villeneuve collision. I vividly remember when the broadcast got back from the commercial break, the legendary Finnish commentator Matti Kyllönen, the Finnish equivalent of the great Murray Walker, was absolutely glowing. His voice was filled with pure adrenaline as he described the situation. An incredible drama. Schumacher tried to crash Villeneuve out. Something about that specific moment made me freeze. It made me stay right there in front of a TV screen. And of course, my excitement grew when Mika Häkkinen crossed the line to take his very first win. From that exact moment on, I have been a Formula 1 wow. But looking back, I do feel a little bit guilty for Jacques Villeneuve and the team from Grove. The 1997 title was a historic triumph, but tragically, Williams hasn't won a single drivers' or constructors' championship since the exact day I started watching the sport. I guess you could say my F1 fandom completely jinxed them. Jerez 1997 had it all. A historic, impossible three-way tie in qualifying, a dramatic championship deciding collision, a secret alliance in the pit lane, and a first-time winner Mika Häkkinen. It was a race that had everything that makes Formula 1 great, and it's no wonder it was the exact race that hooked me into this beautiful, crazy sport. Now, I want to hear from you. What are the historic races, forgotten heroes, or dramatic moments from F1 history that you would love to hear covered in future episodes? If you have any episode ideas or stories to share, please let me know. If you enjoyed this journey back to 1997, make sure to follow us on Instagram or at TikTok at Laps of the Past. And if you have any stories or feedback, drop us an email at lapsofthepast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Laps of the Past. My name is Jarmo. Until next time, keep looking back.